what could be of interest, and that's what we're going to talk about shortly now, would be were there some more specific proposals within the REPowerEU plan besides the general approach for the energy mix? Well, there were some. Phased in obligation to install solar panels on new buildings. As I said before, solar energy seems to be some sort of a joker for the Commission and for the legislative body. That's why they rely to a higher extent on that one. Then, of course, hydrogen, installing heat pumps, as I said before, in individual buildings, especially the newer ones. Biomethane also. So there were some more specific approaches within the REPowerEU plan which can be mentioned. And a very crucial part of achieving these goals is financing. We said in the last edition already that energy research is necessary through the Horizon regulation. We depicted that already. But there's another topic, the general matter of financing, which has been established by the Commission through a so-called financing mechanism of the European Union. And this, of course, shall and actually helps to enhance wherever possible the infrastructure of the member states. The money is still far not enough in order to do that. Still, especially the member states which we just mentioned lack infrastructure despite this financing mechanism. Well, and now, as promised, we will come to the topic of achieving clean air, which is of course one of them elements which plays an important role within the whole matter of climate change and environmental policy as a whole. As mentioned before, the European Union does not really lack laws. There is a law almost for everything. For instance, a directive which interests us here was mentioned in 2016, dealing with the reduction of emissions of certain air pollutants. And this directive, as you know, directives have to be transferred into national law of the member states. Regarding the national context, I'm going to deal with Germany here more, because it is the biggest economy within the European Union, and well, I'm actually living and working here, and it also has transferred the above mentioned European Union directive in a quite interesting way, because there are two different laws of the German legal order which take care of clean air matters. First of all, the law on nature conservation and landscape management, the so-called Bundesnaturschutzgesetz. That is a federal law. As you know, Germany consists of 16 smaller states like Bavaria, Lower Saxony, in which I live, where Hanover is. That's the state of Lower Saxony. Then there is Berlin, which is not only the federal capital city, but also a state of itself, and other. A total of 16 states. And each of them has relevant nature conservation laws on their own. They even have their own constitution each, and their own constitutional court. But then, of course, at the federal level, there is the federal constitution and the federal constitutional court to be mentioned. So this directive, in order to reduce emissions of certain air pollutants, was transferred in a twofold way by the German legal order. First of all, through the law on nature conservation and landscape management, and secondly, through another law which protects against harmful environmental effects from air pollution, noise, vibration, and similar processes, the so-called Bundesemissionsschutzgesetz. In this context, the first of the two mentioned laws, the law on nature conservation and landscape management, has a twofold aim. It aims at protecting biological diversity. It aims to provide further a functional ecosystem. That's what interestingly, the national laws of the Federal Republic of Germany are not divided into sections, as you might know, or articles. They're divided into paragraphs. That's a quite specific German thing. So they took the nice Greek word of paragraph, and they divided their laws into that. So you will find a division in articles only in the federal and the state constitutions. The laws in Germany are divided into paragraphs. Same goes for the civil code, for the penal code, and so on. They are all divided into paragraphs. By the way, just for your knowledge. So this twofold goal is actually set out through para 1 of this law on nature conservation and landscape management. And this twofold goal, to protect biological diversity and to provide for a functional ecosystem, is actually something which is to be seen as a big picture, which means that every sort of landscape planning must be subordinate to these goals. In order to achieve the two goals, nature protection areas are foreseen. Of course, this is part of another bigger discussion, an ongoing discussion within the European Union, because shortly, some weeks before, the Habitat Directive was issued, and the secondary legal act of the European Union wants to take care of the problem that most of the habitats all over the European Union are in a poor shape, which means that further nature protection areas are needed, which means that this law on nature conservation will have to adapt to ongoing European legal provisions. What will be the competent authority in terms of taking care of the quality of clean air? There is a federal agency for nature conservation, Bundesumweltamt, which actually is in the position to cross-check whether all stakeholders involved are complying. And this federal agency for nature conservation is in the position to constantly observe the natural development and the actual state of the nature within this context, and to propose, if necessary, solutions if there are pathologies, if there are problems which need an answer. Yeah, dear ladies and gentlemen, what else is here to mention? We just talked about the law on nature conservation and landscape management. Let's talk shortly also about the other one of the two laws which I mentioned before, which actually transferred the aforementioned directive of 2016 into the German national legal order. Well, the law on protection against harmful environmental effects, be it air pollution, be it noise, vibration, and so on, recognizes different types of emission control, and for certain systems, for certain types of undertakings, an approval by the aforementioned agency is necessary, and for others there is no approval necessary. There is this giant annex to this law, it's even bigger than the law itself, including which sort of undertakings would need an approval in terms of emission control, an approval for having the possibility to have emissions, and which undertakings would not need foreign approval. And you can easily assume that, okay, only the fact that this annex to the law is a giant one means that lawmakers are in contact with undertakings which are interested in being included in this annex, and undertakings which are not interested in being included in that annex. So lawmaking is also about being in contact with the stakeholders. And if you ask yourselves why certain things are written in a law, in most of the cases it has to do with the fact that lawmakers have to outbalance different interests, to put it politely. So that's why in the German context, this annex to this law, which we just mentioned, is a giant one, including a whole variety of undertakings and economic areas in which emission control is necessary, and other undertakings for which no relevant approvals are necessary. So much about that. To sum up, dear ladies and gentlemen, today I gave you some more insights about the Green Deal, and we talked about respective developments within the Green Deal